Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for our show. Today, I want to welcome a new guest to North Country Matters. With me is Sam Joseph from the St. Lawrence County Planning Office. He's here to discuss the work of the county's Environmental Management Council. Welcome to North Country Matters, Sam.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So, you told me that you are new to the planning office, having just started in June, but the planning office is a busy place from the sounds of things. So you're getting right into the heart of the work of the office. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, please.
Sure. Yeah, so I went to school at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and I studied ecology and natural resource management. And I also got a certificate in geographic information systems. Um, while there, I got interested in food systems, and so I actually went on a little path of working on a variety of organic farms, and I had the plan to become an organic farmer. And then through that path, I ended up actually at St. Lawrence University with their sustainability program. They hired an organic farmer, and then just through weird coincidence, I ended up being the sustainability program director. I did that for 8 years, I guess, close to 8 years. And then it was time to do something else. And I applied for this planner two position at the county. And here I am. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like a great background for the kind of work you're doing now.
Yeah. I mean, it actually applies in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Sure. So the county's Environmental Management Council is an advisory board to the Board of Legislators, and it's overseen by the Planning Office. So tell us a little bit about the history of the board and the kinds of things that it oversees.
Sure. Yeah. So it was actually state legislation in 1971 that created it, and basically they created for every county an environmental management council. And the idea was to preserve the land of the state of New York, and the best way to do that was to break it up into individual counties. So then through that legislation, the Board of Legislators created the EMC. It got incorporated into the planning office. Um, and basically, our goal is to kind of oversee environmental issues and advise the Board of Legislators for that, to do public campaigns, like awareness campaigns, and to produce maps and documents and kind of to preserve the local natural resources of the area. In addition to that, there was also something called the Conservation Advisory Councils, and they're similar to the EMCs, except that they're meant for the individual municipalities. So every town has the option to create a CAC, and basically the EMC is meant to kind of like oversee all the CACs. So it's kind of a way that the state government divvies some of the power to the counties, and the counties kind of oversee some of the municipalities, and kind of that's how it works.
You know, it's interesting because, of course, the early 1970s is when this nation really began to think a lot about conservation and ecology and the environment. All those kinds of things, the first Earth Day, all that kind of thing was
Mhm.
starting to happen. And the fact that, the county's been working on this for over 50 years now, just is an indication of just how critical this particular work is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's amazing how much we've accomplished, and also how much we haven't accomplished, and how far we need to go still. But yeah, I mean the 70s I think were a very important time, and I'm actually really grateful. I'm not sure if this would have been able to pass in this day and age, but because it has passed and it's here, we are continuing to do the good work. And
Yeah.
they've accomplished some really great things in the EMC over the years.
That's a good point that often the kind of legislation that empowers us lasts long beyond the administration that created it and all of that, and that it takes decades really for the work to be done. It was
Yes.
envisioned once, but it's, as you say, it's not done yet. So the council itself is actually made up of individuals from around the county with an interest in environmental issues. How does somebody get appointed to the council, and are there current openings?
Yes. So it's fairly rigorous process. So you submit an application with a little bit of a bio, kind of explaining your interests and how long have you lived in the county and where you're from and what your environmental qualifications would be. And then the Board of Legislators will look at that, and it takes a 3-month process where they bring it up in their Board of Legislator meetings to approve it. And the idea is that we want to have people who are experienced with environmental advocacy or environmental education or environmental science, something along those lines. And then we also want to have a diverse group of people from across the county. So we don't want it to be just clustered around Canton as the county seat. We want to get all the issues from the whole county. That said, we have currently 3 vacancies. 2 people are in the process of that 3-month approval process. So I can't say for a fact that they are approved and on the board, but most likely they will go through that process. So we'll have one vacancy. I should say that anyone who has a strong passion or interest will most likely get through the process. I don't want to discourage anyone with this expertise need. I find that most people who are interested are more than qualified to do it.
Right, and the application is on the county website, so it's not hard to access, and anybody who's got a passion and an interest can certainly apply. And I'm assuming you keep applications on file, so as openings come available, you've got a pool of people to draw from.
Yes, and I mean, if anyone has any questions or wants to discuss it further, they can always reach out and contact me. It's sjoseph@stlawco.gov. But it is also on the St. Lawrence County website too, under
Okay,
EMC.
I'll be sure to put that in our show notes so people will have that access. So when and where does the council meet, Sam?
So we are currently meeting in the second floor of the Public Safety Building, which is on Court Street, 49.5 Court Street. It's across the street from the courthouse. We will be moving offices come probably around December. So we will be moving over to the Human Service Center, which is where the DMV is located. But right now we are meeting in the Public Safety Complex. It's the 3rd Wednesday of the month. It's open meetings, so anyone can just come show up, even if they are, not part of the council. And we would actually really enjoy and love to have people just come and just give their opinions. They will definitely be respected and heard.
Oh, great. And I believe the meeting agendas are always posted ahead of time, so you folks would know what you guys were going to be actually discussing, correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
they should be available. Yep.
Well, I was looking at the website, and there's certainly a ton of really great information on there, including your meeting minutes and a lot of detailed information. So anybody who really wants to kind of dive deep into this topic has got the resources to do so, don't they?
Yeah, I believe so. I hope so.
Okay. So recently you made a presentation to the Canton Sustainability Committee with a view towards getting other communities in the county to create a similar local group. Using that Canton model, what do you envision for these groups?
Yeah, so part of the legislation envisioned these conservation advisory councils for each municipality in the county. We currently do not have any of these conservation advisory councils. The Canton Sustainability Committee and the Potsdam Climate Smart Committee are the 2 I would say are closest to this, and I would like to try to replicate them in other areas of the county. Specifically, I'm thinking of the more densely populated, the villages and the cities and what have you. I think a lot of this work needs to have the local level, right? Like the county is a big, big space, and there's a lot of different activities going on. And so if we can get the same work happening across the county rather than just a few folks in Canton trying to think about all the issues that need to happen through the whole county, it'd be very beneficial. That said, I think that there's a lot of synergy that can happen. So a lot of people are already doing this work, but we're kind of just a little siloed or a little disjointed. So what I'm trying to do, or what I'm hoping to do, is to try to get some synergy going and a little communication going. So I know this is already happening, but I'm trying to also foster it. But all the work that the Canton Sustainability Group is doing, can we just spread the word and then get more buy-in, more support to like do similar activities in Messina or Ogdensburg or wherever, Canton Sustainability was talking to Potsdam Climate Smart Community. Can we be an avenue to help with that communication? And I'm not sure exactly. I'm hopeful, but we'll see how it goes.
What is there about the Canton Sustainability Group that they're doing currently that you think makes them such a great model for the kind of work you're hoping other communities will adopt?
Yeah, so I mean, they are working with that compost collection initiative, which I thought is great. When I went to the meeting, they were talking about doing a pollinator trail where they have signage and like this connectivity across the village, across multiple campuses, to have an education component about why are pollinators important, how can we support pollinators. And that stemmed from this idea of no-mow zones, which a lot of people are interested in these no-mow zones, but they don't really know a lot about it because it can kind of look maybe messy. So if it became more of a communication about how do we support pollinators, and maybe this is an avenue that we can do, and it can look beautiful, and there's ways that we can do to make it look beautiful. So those are a couple of the initiatives that I think are really exciting. Just the fact that they exist at all, right? Like the fact that there are groups in these municipalities that are concerned about these issues and are talking about them and are working towards this work, I think is vitally important.
So you mentioned the Potsdam Climate Smart Community, which is actually a statewide program, and how it seems to have been slow to get started in other places for some reason, and it's really a shame because the kind of work that the climate smart community folks are doing is just absolutely critical, not only for infrastructure of local towns, but they're actually looking at things like, what are the most likely disasters that are going to happen? Are you going to be prone to flooding? Are you going to be prone to other kinds of things? And how do you mitigate that? And how do you plan for it? So speak a little bit about the climate smart community process and, how other towns and villages can actually start.
Yeah, I think there's a way we can frame the problem that doesn't have political undertones, that can encourage people who might have a knee-jerk reaction against it, that can then get buy-in to some of the concepts. So I think a lot of areas in the county might be resistant to when you mention the idea of climate change or climate smart. But if you frame the problem in a different manner, you can get a lot of very successful buy-in when we talk about like natural disaster resiliency, energy sources that are locally available and potentially useful to us. And so I'm trying to be strategic in how I discuss the problem that doesn't turn people off by their preconceived ideas of what the agenda is, if that makes sense. And I think when we actually get down to the nitty-gritty of what we're actually trying to do and achieve, I actually personally see a lot of similarities or useful discussions, useful work that can be done to address a lot of these issues. Sometimes we get a little into these political blinders, if you will. And so I think my vision would be to avoid these challenges. Try to get people to buy into what we can mutually agree upon as useful and strategic activities.
Right. Well, I think here in the North Country, we had a great example of that in 1998 with the ice storm, because that impacted a huge area, much larger than just the North Country. It disrupted absolutely everything that could be disrupted, in terms of that. So anybody who lived through that and was affected by it certainly should be able to remember back that, yeah, we need to plan for these kinds of things. And we know just from listening to the news and watching the Weather Channel that extreme weather events are happening at a very rapid pace. I remember a few years ago them talking about 100-year storms, and it seems like we have a 100-year storm every week somewhere in the country or around the world. So definitely, regardless of what your political thoughts are about climate change or however you want to phrase it, the point is these things are happening and people are being affected, and it's costing billions of dollars. And one of the things that I think people really need to think about is because these events are happening at a rapid pace, we really don't have the resources to handle more than one at a time or in a huge swath. So localities really have to be resilient, as you mentioned. They have to plan ahead, and they really have to be thinking about how to keep their constituents safe.
Yes, and I think that's a really good way to frame the issue for a lot of these areas that may be not that they're resistant, but just it's just a different way to like think about the issues. I also think that people have a good understanding of how valuable our local environment is and the resources available to us, and can we, use these resources in a way that is sustainable and doesn't deplete them for future use. And I think there's a lot of strategic ways that we can do it just through I mean, the planning office is all about that. Like, how do we preserve our resources? How do we preserve our natural environment so that they can sustain us for, our children and our children's children and our grandchildren's children, so forth.
That's right, because we've all inherited a great many of these resources from previous generations, and it's our responsibility to put them in good shape and make them available for the folks who come after us. So let's talk a little bit about the resources that the planning office can offer to local places who want to start this process, and maybe get back to the idea of the conservation committees, which were in place at one time and then sort of faded.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look into this. I'm not entirely sure that a lot of these municipalities ever had a conservation advisory committee. What I find is that the people who volunteer for these organizations are volunteering for a lot of the organizations. It's the same people that are doing this work all over the place. And so I keep trying to feel like I need to identify who these people are, what they are already doing, and how can we work together to synergize, right? So I am lucky enough that I have a certain amount of my time. I wish it was more. It's not infinite, right? But I do have a certain amount of my time that is dedicated to the EMC, and we can go off and do our own thing, and that's great. We definitely accomplish a lot on our own, but I think we can accomplish more if we can work with these municipalities and see what are these projects that are already doing. And I think that there are people out there that are already doing this work. They may not be doing it through their government, or they may not be doing it in a formal manner, or they might be calling themselves different names. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that there are a lot of interested people and they're already doing this work. And so if we can find out what the work that they're already doing, we don't have to strain this limited volunteer effort. We don't have to stretch them thinner by being like, come volunteer for the EMC. You're already doing it. Let's just synergize. Let's just talk to each other. Let's communicate and see how we can do it better. And then I feel like it's kind of a snowball effect that once we are accomplishing some things, people get excited about it and they want to keep doing it so it can actually grow through our accomplishments. Hopefully.
You make a good point about the fact that there's a lot of work that's being done that's kind of under the radar screen, and people who really care about these issues, but they're working hyper locally, and they may not understand that the county planning office would be a great place for them to start networking with. And so, hopefully shows like this will help bring some clarity to the process. But I do think that there are lots of folks who care deeply, and we're very fortunate here with the 4 colleges in the county, because each one of them is doing alternative energy work or sustainability work or whatever it is, and that gives them access to a great deal of student energy as well. And you know that from your work at St. Lawrence. So finding ways to leverage that energy and that interest and make it work for the people of the county is just makes good sense, doesn't it?
I think so. And actually, I think this is an incredible location. It has a great sense of place. There's a lot of dedicated, really diverse group of people working on these issues. And it seems to me a very, very resilient space. So, yeah, I'm happy that this is my home, and I think there's so much potential that we can achieve.
So you're kind of the go-to guy there in the planning office in terms of anybody who wants to do more or get more involved in this process. If there is a local group working in a community or a township, they should definitely get a hold of you and start trying to figure out how there can be a multiplier effect, right, of working with other folks in other places.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase it. Yeah. So just reach out, see what I'm already trying to explore what people are doing.
Mhm.
And I every time I look, there seems to be another group that's doing something. So we're actually trying to compile a list of all the organizations that are working on all these great things, and just keep our ears to the wall and be like, oh, that group is doing this, we're doing this. Maybe we should collaborate on that, you know. And I do genuinely think that just by collaborating, just by talking to each other, just by communicating, it'll be more than the sum of the parts. So it'll have like you said, a multiplier or an exponential kind of growth effect.
Yeah, I agree. And it's work that absolutely needs to be done, not just for those of us who are living here right now, but work that has to be done for the future and for the next generations, because we only get one trip around the sun, so to speak, and we need to make sure that our vehicle is in good shape.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm very optimistic. The more I've delved into these issues, the more the more optimistic I become. There's this thing out there that I've seen, especially with young people, especially with college age kids that are very, very passionate. They go through an eco despair is the terminology I've heard used, that the magnitude of these issues that we're facing kind of weighs down on them, and they go into this despair, and they feel like there's nothing that can be achieved. And I would say I've gone through phases of that myself. But now, as I've gotten older, and now I've seen the work that has been done, and where were we in 1970, and where we are now, and where are we going? I think this might be controversial in the sustainability world, but I'm very hopeful. I think there's a lot of great things that are going on, and I do think we can achieve these problems. And there will always be new problems, right? It never really ends. It's just like a slow improvement. So
But we learn by doing, and we learn when we solve one problem, it gives us the tools to help tackle the next problem. A phrase that I really like in this kind of work is think globally, act locally. And
yes,
that is really what you're talking about, is empowering that action locally to make our place in the world a better place, isn't it?
that's couldn't say it better. That's exactly it. Yes.
Well, I wish I had thought that up, but I haven't. I borrowed it from many other people who use that phrase, but it just really describes how to overcome that despair and that feeling like you can't make a difference, because we all can make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, we're all standing on the backs of giants, right? So my predecessor, John Tenbush, and before him, John Montan, like they definitely made genuine impact that has made the county better. And I can look back at the files and I see it's like specific projects that they've worked on, and it's like we take it for granted, but it has a real impact on the county. And I'm just hoping I can contribute to that in the same manner.
Well, I am absolutely convinced that you are, just from that way that the passion that you are showing about this. I think you're the right guy in the right place at the right time, and I hope that the other people working on these issues will reach out to you and start those conversations to make this really grow in an exponential manner, as you say.
Great. Well, thanks for the confidence.
Well, you're infectious. Let's put it that way in a good way. So anyway, Sam, thank you so much for coming in today, and I hope that this does start a lot of conversations with your office, and that folks who do care and want to figure out how to be more effective can reach out to the planning office and kind of utilize your expertise and your resources.
Great. Thank you so much, Don, for having me on.
Oh, thank you. So these conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.